welcome back to Func. My name is Kimberly McKnight.
And I'm Dennis.
Thanks for tuning in today. Let's take a look at today's weather. The high is 79 with a low of 59. Today is a lovely day.
And the word of today is retinue, meaning a group of helpers, supporters, or followers. This word can be used in a sentence such as, the party venue requires a retinue of staff to successfully carry out large events.
Let's dive right into some campus news. Furman University announced that the Board of Trustees extended President Elizabeth Davis's contract through 2030, with an option to add 2 years, citing her 10-year leadership. Davis would become Furman's 7th president to serve 15 years or more with the extension throughout 2030.
The GCA Business Report's 40 Under 40 included several Furman University graduates. This list annually honors upstate professionals who have made significant contributions. Local businesses, groups, and individuals nominate these experts. The deserving will be honored at a March 13 luncheon at the downtown Greenville Hyatt Regency.
We are excited to announce campus bookstore improvements. Over the past year, the bookstore surveyed and worked with students, faculty, and staff to rethink course materials and campus retail. The bookstore ended the Barnes & Noble partnership and started a new one with the Follet Higher Education after a thorough provider review. New Bell Tower Bookstore and Bistro opens Friday, April 12th. Spring break is over and students are hitting the halfway mark. Our Kobe Hawk went to the mall to see what students did for spring break.
Hi there, what did you do for spring break?
I went to Charleston to visit some family and friends.
Right on, so what did you get to do? Did you go to the beach? Have any fun like that?
Yeah, I went to the beach one day. They have a baby, so I just played with the baby and babysat.
Well, congratulations, that sounds like it was a good time.
Yeah, it was.
So, what did you do for this spring break?
I didn't really do much. I went back home and I got a lot of baking stuff for Christmas. So I used that out and made some macaroons and some cupcakes.
Awesome, that sounds like you made some really tasty stuff. What was your favorite thing?
I think the cupcakes got a lot better. My first time I made macaroons didn't go so great. I think I did everything wrong according to the troubleshooting that I saw. But, I'll try them again eventually.
Yeah, practice makes perfect. What did you do for spring break?
I went to Destin with some friends.
Awesome, you go to the beach, what did you do?
Yeah, definitely went to the beach a lot. Got pretty sunburned. Swam a lot. It was a great time.
Awesome, sounds like you got a lot of fun in.
Yeah.
Did you get sunburned too much?
Yes, I did. Definitely not too much. But yeah, a little bit of aloe vera and I'm good.
Hey there, what did you do for spring break?
I went home for most of it, and then last weekend I went to my girlfriend's house.
Awesome, did you get to watch or play games or anything?
I played a lot of Fortnite with my dad.
Did you get any victory royales though?
Yes, a couple.
Hey there, what did you do for spring break?
Oh, I went to the basketball game that Furman had. Good game, very close. Went into overtime, but we won. That was good.
Awesome. Did you get to do anything else for fun this break?
Not too much. Mostly hung out, but I also got a couple workouts in with a friend of mine, so that was good.
Hey there, what did you do for spring break?
For spring break, I stayed on campus with the softball team. We went to UNC, and then we went to Georgia this past weekend.
Awesome. Well, how did it go?
It was good. It was a lot of fun, and it's always nice to spend some time doing softball without the stress of school.
Hi there, what did you do for break?
Well, I'm a staff member in the Center for Academic Success, and I was here at work all week.
Sounds like things were pretty busy. Okay.
Well, not really busy. We don't get spring break as time off, but it is much quieter when we're here. And so we can actually focus on some things that maybe get pushed to the side in the rush of the rest of the semester.
Thank you, Kobe. It appears you guys sure had some fun over spring break.
This week, we kicked off Justice Month with Chalk for Justice. Students gathered outside the dining hall to express their creative freedom.
Then on Tuesday, there was a CLP discussing what is justice with a panel of Furman faculty and staff.
There are more events coming up next week that you can check out. From CLPs to documentaries, you can visit the Justice Forum calendar for more.
Where the Func is Cole. Our technician director is somewhere across the world this semester. To introduce this new show, Cole and Kobe will discuss one of their previous adventures on a MAX.
Hello and welcome back to Where the Func is Cole. Today is our first episode, and we wanted to talk about one of the experiences that we got to go on during this past summer, and that was to France during part of a MAX program through Furman University. It was led by Professor Marion Strobel, and we got to learn a lot about the history behind a lot of significant memorials and landmarks that were in World War I. So, Cole, can you tell me a little bit more about one of the areas that we visited called Verdun, France?
Yeah, of course. So the Battle of Verdun itself lasted like late 1916 and then early through December, roughly 10 months, just shy, actually, 1 day shy of making the 10-month mark. And from the February to December of 1916, 50 French and 75 German divisions just slogged it out in this one area. And the whole point for the Germans was they wanted to take Verdun to not only get a huge fortified area of French defenses, which would allow them to go further into France itself and put the French on the back foot, but it ended up turning into this whole defiant stand of France itself when they were basically fighting and pushing back the Germans. And the whole idea was, I think, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, there was this very famous statement. It was like, "They shall not pass," and that is quoted to someone who was at Verdun itself. And during Verdun, you had basically just about every German unit you can think, German, well, especially French, every French unit you can think of would just funnel through there at some point. So you had people like Charles de Gaulle, Philippe Pétain, a bunch of other famous French military people. They went through and they fought at Verdun, or in some cases led it at one point or another, or perhaps even the entire time. And during that whole basically 10-month period, there was around, and this is in total for both the French and the Germans, 800,000 casualties. And to put that in perspective, in the ossuary in Verdun, there is this room that's probably about the size of a combination of the size of your average living room or possibly the size of a large lakeside dormitory. And within that space are the skeletal remains of 130,000 French and German soldiers who are just piled up in there. And as I said earlier, the casualties for both sides in total was around 800,000. That is basically 1/8 of all casualties. They were all in there.
That is a lot
Yeah.
to really take in. I mean, think about that. The 1/8 of the entire of all the casualties of that that battle are there, but also looking at the other physical scars, like at the French Fort Domo, just right down the road. That's another thing that's also really, I think, moving to see it in person and kind of get to experience this for yourself. In my experiences, that was definitely one of the most moving experiences of the whole trip. What do you think about getting to see this fort up close?
I mean, it itself was just amazing to think about. You had Fort Dumont was an area that was captured by the Germans during the war, and during the entire course of Verdun, the Germans were basically boxed inside of that fort because the French just kept shelling the area. So it was literally the only way you could get in and out was via a couple communication trenches, which were just under constant shell, sniper, and rifle fire. And inside, it was just hell for the Germans. There were beds that were just bunches of planks together, and I believe it was something like 4 to 5 guys would just stay on one area, just one side, just stacked side by side inside. No real comforts. And in fact, towards the bottom, there is a area now which is bricked up, and there's a little cross on there, white cross. And behind that wall are 1,052 German soldiers. And in fact, when I believe this was when we visited the Trench of Death, I bought this book, Forgotten Voices of the Great War by Max Arthur in association with the Imperial War Museum. And there is a quote from a German soldier whose name is Lieutenant Stefan Westman, who was a German medical officer. He was in Fort Dumont during the battle, and he went down there and to that area, and he asked the guy, he's like, "Hey, what's up with this brick wall?" And the guy told him, "Was like, yeah, we stored basically fuel and ammunition down there, and some guy just did something. It blew up, and there was so much just stuff in there. They're like, no, we're not going to try to even recover the bodies of what was essentially a battalion's worth of men. So they just bricked it up, and the bodies are still behind there to this day.
That's pretty grisly, to be honest.
Yeah.
But that also kind of shows you the desperation of really what these soldiers had to, kind of go through
Oh,
the
yeah.
situation. You didn't have resources, you didn't have time to
No.
even make an effort to recover because you have to be on the constant, defense in this case, right?
Oh, yeah.
But because this fort, I believe it was probably the largest. I think it was one of the largest forts that France had at the time.
I believe it was, yes.
So that made it had a really big propaganda value for one, and a tactical value for both the French and the German forces that were fighting there. So if you kind of put that in perspective, it kind of does seem to make a little sense, as much as a conflict like this can, to try to fight over something like that. But walking inside these damp, musty corridors. I remember they even had like defenses, like defensive positions that they had set up in the corridor there underground. And you talked about the beds earlier. It was just primitive, damp, and I'm sure that there was a lot of mud involved in all of the fort. So if you're trying to sleep, I can imagine on those bunks, it probably would have been very muddy and very uncomfortable on those big cots with everybody. But also,
and that's excluding the fact that because it's so small, so dirty, and the whole thing itself is made from like multiple inches of concrete. So you have the constant barrage and sounds of just rifle and artillery fire either coming from inside or outside of the place. So you're just basically hearing this constant roar of combat 24/7. And if that's not the sheer definition of madness, I don't know what is.
If you look outside of the fort, you can still see pockmarks on the whole outside of it. And I think they also had like some of the, what was it? I think machine gun or like scout. Scout turrets.
On the top there was, well, from what I could tell, there was one. It was like a scout cupola or like scout area. But if you wanted to, the hole is big enough where you could easily have just shoved your rifle through there and just try to snipe. It would have been the best spot. But if you were in a pinch and you needed to, you could have. And it's interesting how you mentioned how there's so much pockmarks from that you can see from on top of that fort. When you look at that whole area, you're looking at possibly the unknown graves of possibly hundreds of undiscovered German and French corpses, and possibly a lot of unexploded ordnance as well. And you have to keep in mind that during the whole course of the battle of Verdun, over 1 million shells were fired in total from both sides.
Wow. Looking at all of these things and reflecting on them is also, I think, really important to get to see this in person, because you can never really quite learn about it the same as you can in a textbook.
Yeah.
Those are also important, of course, but getting to see these things and experience this hands-on, that's really important. And I think one of the more lighthearted highlights from our visit to the Fort Douaumont was when we visited one of the original communications trenches outside the fort. That was where we had our nice little lunch break.
Yes. And if I remember correctly, you asked the guy to see if we couldn't find any shrapnel pieces, and lo and behold, we just found some shrapnel. How far would you say from where we were sitting eating? Like probably at most 20 yards?
Literally, I'm not even exaggerating. I think it was probably 10, 15 feet at most, because the tour guide had to hunt for it a little bit. But she told us, she was like, yeah, you find this stuff everywhere. Admittedly, it wasn't a large piece or anything. It was just a small fragment of metal. But still, that shows you everything is still packed into the ground and it's waiting to be unpacked. And I'll be very interested to see over the next 10, 20, 30 years, whatever from now, what people keep on discovering, because there's still so much remaining.
Yeah. Even then, like when we were just sitting on the edge of that trench, some of the stuff that was like supporting it, you could still see some of the metal and the wood that would stick up to just keep the sides of the trench available. And it's still there. That literally says so much, considering the fact that this battle was geez, now, yeah, 2023, roughly 107 years ago, give or take.
That's a long
That
time,
just says
but
a lot, yeah.
it's also really not, because there's still so many things left over. But it was also kind of interesting. I think it was fun to get to go eat lunch in a trench, because you
Oh,
really
yeah.
can't do that on a normal everyday basis, obviously. But it's also kind of interesting to kind of put yourself into the shoes of one of these soldiers that would have been stationed there, and kind of reflect on that as well. You kind of get to balance the fun aspects of it along with the actual historical significance of it. And I think that's why really going and seeing these things and getting to have these experiences and getting to reflect on it's really important. And I don't know about you, but I think if you're interested in history, and if World War I or really any recent modern history is something that you're interested in, I would highly recommend visiting Fort Douaumont in Verdun itself.
Yeah, I mean, as you said earlier, reading about something or seeing like some sort of reenactment is one thing, but when you actually go to the place and you see it for yourself, that gives you a whole new perspective on that event that you just cannot comprehend just by reading about it or watching some sort of documentary film about it. And in that respect, it's very humbling. Just know the fact that, yeah, you think you know so much about this one thing, and then when you actually get there, you're blown away every time.
It really, it really puts things into perspective really quickly, for sure. With that in mind, I think that this has been a really good conversation. So, well, thank you for tuning in today, Cole. I really appreciate your time today. Stay tuned for some more content coming soon. My name is Colby Hawk.
I'm Cole Kennedy.
We'll see you next time.
Next week, we will get to take a look at where Cole is now. Guess where Cole is and submit your answer to can'tstopthefunk@gmail.com. The lucky winner will be announced at the next show. That's all we have for today. I'm Kimberly McKnight.
And I'm Dennis. If you have any news or announcements, email can'tstopthefunk@gmail.com. We will see you next time.